Here we go. Okay, just gonna go. Hi, my name is Father Mike Schmitz, and this is Ascension Presents. I have had a number of conversations with a number of people who have told me about what you might call, like, I don't know if they call them toxic relationships, because we're not going that, it's not at that degree. What it is what you might call like a vampire relationship, which sounds almost as bad, maybe even worse. What I mean is, it's the kind of relationships that are in your life that just kind of drain you. But they're also the relationships where you realize, I kind of have a responsibility here, but it still drains me. So we all have those friends, right? We have those friends or coworkers, even family members that, okay, I have a responsibility to these friends, a responsibility to these coworkers or to these family members, but man, there's a massive drain on me. They take actually more than I have to offer. And so the temptation, of course, in that kind of situation is like, how do I get rid of that relationship? Now, if that's the call, and if that's the response that is adequate, is the wise response to get rid of that relationship, then maybe that's there. There's a step before that, though, that I invite you to contemplate and consider. And it's not to cut off the relationship, but it's to establish some boundaries. Now, in this moment, I know a lot of times people are like, but that seems like not a very Christian thing to do. Like, that's not what Jesus would do. Jesus would be 100% available to 100% of the people 100% of the time. And then I would say, you need to read your Bible, because that's not true. Jesus, of course, is very available to many people. Now he is completely available to all people, right, in his glory. When he's united to his humanity on this earth, he's still united to humanity in heaven. That's a whole other theological piece. But when he's united in his humanity to his humanity on this earth, his humanity wasn't 100% available to 100% of the people 100% of the time. There were times when he was with the crowds, with the people, anyone who needed him, but there were also times when he would go away, just be with his disciples, go even further and just be with the 12 apostles, even go way further and be with the 3, and even go way further and just be with his Father, united in the Holy Spirit. Like, think about how those conversations would go. Here's Jesus with the crowds. How clearly he would have had to establish boundaries with them and saying, okay, I'm leaving now. It's just us, we're going away. Or even with the 9, when he went away with Peter, James, and John, how he'd have to say, okay, guys, Peter, James, and John are going to go off, but we want to come too. I'm Peter's brother, Andrew. Like, sorry, Andrew, poor guy. But here's the boundary: the 4 of us are going to go. Or when he went up the mountain by himself to pray. I mean, imagine all the apostles like, I want to go up with him. I want to see what he's like. How does he pray in that solitude? The crowds. Jesus would have had to establish very clear boundaries. You're staying here. I'm going up there. And if Jesus did that in his humanity, united to his divinity, newsflash, you and I aren't united. We don't also have a divine nature to us. We participate in God's divine, a whole other thing. But we're just humans, right? Therefore, if Jesus had to establish boundaries in his humanity, you and I are going to need to establish boundaries in our humanity as well, especially with those relationships that are maybe out of control or out of hand. Why? There are people in your life who need you. There are people in your life who actually need you. And because of that, they need you to establish boundaries. In the course of my, 15 plus years being a priest, I've seen a number of occasions where here's someone who's in great need, or a family in great need. And we have really big-hearted parishioners and really big-hearted, students who just, I want to help. I want to be like Jesus. I want to take care of the people who Jesus would take care of. And I will always say, okay, you guys, that's wonderful. Please do that. But make sure that there are boundaries. What do you mean? On 2 levels at least. Make sure that there's boundaries as far as like, here's what you can do. Like, here's when you're available, here's when you're not available. Secondly, here is what this relationship is. Because you establish it as here's a relationship of like, yeah, I'm here to serve you. Here's the hard part. I may not also be here to be your on-call friend, right? And that sounds so callous, sounds so cold, but ultimately it's this. If you don't establish a boundary, what will happen is, you will be there 100% on-call everything for 6 months, maybe 12 months if you've got a lot of juice. But then you're fried and they have no one to care for them. Versus establishing a boundary of saying, okay, this is when I'm available, this is when I'm not available, this is what I'll do, this is what I won't do. This is the nature of our relationship. If it grows into a friendship, that's wonderful, but the nature of our relationship now is I'm here to serve in this particular area. If you do that, not only can you actually continue to serve for a really long time, you can serve others, you also respect the person because you're saying 2 things. You're saying, I'm letting you know how you can serve me. Maybe just one thing. I'm letting you know how you can serve me. To be able to say, hey, listen, I've got a lot of other things to do. So if you respect my boundary, that's one of the ways that you can help me continue to move forward. You're giving them the opportunity to help. That's one of the things, isn't it? It's the hardest thing sometimes to be the one who is being helped, because you're like, how do I give back? Well, how about this? I'm available here, but not here. This is our relationship. This isn't our relationship. Please respect that. Bam. So simple, so helpful, and so necessary. Okay, so how do you do this kind of thing? Well, I invite people to keep three things in mind. One is when you're establishing a boundary, rather than cutting off the relationship, establishing, okay, here's when I'm available, here's when I'm not available. I can only control what I do. I can't control what someone else does. And so if I don't establish a boundary, then who's to blame? I am to blame. If I don't establish a boundary, if I'm not clear in that communication of, yep, here's what I know I can do, so therefore here is what is available to you. Here is when I need to go away. Like Jesus, I need to go away and get recharged. Or I need to go away and be with some friends. Or I need to go away and be with the family members who aren't this kind of a drain. Like, you can only control what you can do, not what someone else can do. And so if you're not doing those things, if you're not establishing the boundary, and if you're not also going to those places where you do get, fed, you do get recharged, you get close to the Lord again, then that's not on them, that's on us, right? So I can only control what I do, not what someone else does. Second thing is I might not be able to control what someone else can do, but I do control what they get away with. What I mean by that is after you've established the boundary, are there consequences for violating the boundary? For example, you say, here's when I can help you. And someone says, well, no, I really need help now. Okay, I can control myself, and I can't control that they asked for this access that's not actually granted to them. It's not open to them. So I can control what they get away with. The big example I always like to give is me on the receiving end. I am not always the most punctual of people with everybody. I am extremely punctual with some people. With who? Well, I'm extremely punctual with people who do not let me get away with being late. That's the bottom line, is they make it very clear, Father Michael, this is the boundary. If we have a meeting at 6 a.m. And you violate that, then I will not let you get away with that. So I show up at 5:55 every time I meet with that person or those people. The others who are like, yeah, 10, 15 minutes late. You're like, I'm a little bit late. They're like, okay. I'm like, great. This will continue into the future. Why? Because I cannot control what someone else can do, but I can control what I let them get away with. So if you establish a boundary, what you need to do, you need to have consequences to that. Number 3 is, again, I can't control what someone else can do, only what I can do, right? And I can't control what someone else does, but what I let them get away with. The third thing is when establishing that boundary, how I establish it actually makes a difference. Like how I say things makes a difference. How we say things makes a difference. I once had a priest friend who, he said, whenever we leave each other, like as human beings, he said, we always say, hey, I gotta go. And he's like, well, I don't always have to go. Sometimes I just want to go. So he said, I'm gonna try this thing right from now on where I'm just gonna say, if I want to go, I'll just say, I wanna go now. Or I want to end this conversation now, instead of I gotta go. And so he tried that, and it lasted for like a week, maybe a week, because his brutal honesty was not received very well by people that he was speaking with. And so he went back to the euphemism, look at the time, gotta go. How we say things, how we establish boundaries is so important, at least 2 ways. 1, we are clear to the people that we actually care about them, that they matter to us, and we're not cutting off the relationship. So we give them an option of like, that, not an option, we give them the affirmation that, I care, and I'm going to be there. But then we also give them, here's where I'm accessible, here's where I'm not accessible. What I mean by that is, say you have there's a great book called Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. If you want to get more about this, like it's in the book, it's so good. They use the example of, say, here's a mom who stops over, here's a grown woman, she has her family of her own, and her mother, who's a widow, stops over all the time, unannounced. And when she shows up, she wants everyone to stop what they're doing and just be with her, because she's lonely. And so the grown daughter is like, I feel so bad for mom and this and that. The boundary could be, Mom, before you come over, I need you to call to make sure that we're not in the middle of something. Or if you do come over, we love having you here, but we can't just stop doing what we're doing. Please come and hang out with us, spend time with us. But I still have to get my work done, or I still have to get the kids' projects done, all that kind of stuff. We still have to get supper made. And so what you're doing is you're establishing, yes, I love you and you're welcome, but here's the boundary. If you do come over, we're going to keep doing our work. We want you to jump in with us. Or if you do come over, we need you to call first. That affirms the two things. One, we still love you, still want you, and there are some consequences, there's some control. Please, the big thing to take away from this is that you can still be a Christian and establish boundaries. In fact, for so many people who are big-hearted Christians, the only way you'll be able to continue serving the people around you is if you establish boundaries. So hopefully this is helpful to you. If it is, if it's not, comment below, like, subscribe, and let me know how it goes with establishing your boundaries. From all of us here at Ascension Presents, my name is Father Mike. God bless.